Infinite mana. We all want infinite mana. Hey guys, we got another build video for the Sorcerer. It's a great one, so you don't want to miss this. A lot of aspect synergies. I really tried to tailor this build into having mana at all times and never have to worry about running out of mana. Stay tuned to see how we basically turn Flame Shield into a mana pot as well. So let's go ahead and get right into it. Alright guys, we're going to start with the stat priority on gear because it's very important, so we'll get into everything that we need here and then we'll see how they correlate with our talents and paragon and aspects. So starting with the helmet, we have max life. This is all in order of what you want to get. As you see, chest armor, they just have max life. You want one ring with max life, the other one have max mana. I actually should change that. Alright, that's changed now. So we're starting with the helmet. We got max life, max mana, cooldown reduction, total armor. So in this build we want to stack max mana as much as we can. As you see, we have it here, 2 max mana, so that's going to make us be able to send out more ice shards with our max mana pool. So cooldown reduction for our Frost Nova, total armor, chest armor, max life, damage reduction, damage reduction, damage reduction. We're not running raiment, as for one I haven't gotten it yet, but I have much success with this build. But anyway, for our gloves, we want ranks of ice shards being number 1, lucky hit chance to restore mana, we'll see that in the talents, and crit strike and attack speed. Attack speed will be able to send out more ice shards, so that's very nice. And then pants, we have all our damage reduction as well, max life being priority number 1, so get as max roll as you can on that. And then boots, we have mana cost reduction, movement speed, ranks of Frost Nova, and ranks of teleport. So just the generic there. Movement speed can be priority since we don't get it on our amulet, but movement speed here is very good, and that should be the only piece we really need movement speed on. Alright, so for our amulet, we have cooldown reduction, ranks to all defensive skills, teleport, ice armor, so basically our core. You'll see how it synergizes well with a aspect later on. And then ranks of devouring blades, which gives us our crit damage against fire or burning enemies, so that's very nice. And then mana cost reduction. And then for our rings, we have max life, max mana, vulnerable damage, and crit strike chance. We have one ring with max life because that's all we really need. We want to get that crit strike damage. As you see, we didn't get it here, so we want to get it somewhere. So we're gonna take off max life for 1 and get crit strike damage just to get that multiplicative damage. Now for our weapon, usually you're gonna run a wand for the lucky hit chance, but if you want more damage in this build, you can also run a dagger for the damage to close enemies, which is really nice. If you want to be a more glass cannon build, you can run the dagger, but for our infinite mana, we need that lucky hit chance. So for our weapon, we have vulnerable damage, crit strike damage, core skill damage, and intelligence. But for our offhand, we want cooldown reduction, lucky hit chance, crit strike chance, and lucky hit up to 5% chance to restore resource, so our mana. So cooldown reduction being number 1 for our Frost Nova, lucky hit chance to restore our mana against vulnerable enemies, and then crit strike chance in that. So that's it for this section. Alright guys, we're going to get right into the aspects now. I can't wait to show you guys the synergies that I have going on here, so I hope you enjoy it. So let's go ahead and get right into it. I'm going to show you the synergies first. So right now we have Starlight Rings. So gain 36 of your primary resource for every 25% of the life you heal. So this is what I mean by turning Flame Shield into a mana potion. So if you're about half health and you go to heal with your shimmering Flame Shield heals you for 50% of your missing life. So it's going to shoot your health up with the starlight aspect, so that's very nice. And then we have Prodigy's loop, using a cooldown restores 17 mana, so we have all cooldowns right here. So if you're on a boss, and I should have a clip playing now where you just spam ice shards, you get low, just pop a cooldown and rinse and repeat, and you will never run out of mana. Alright, so getting to the other aspects, we have Frost Blitz. Frost Nova gains an additional charge, but the cooldown per charge is increased by 36%. This is kind of mandatory. So, and I looked forever for this aspect, by the way. I could not get it after doing many hell tides and spending all my obols on helmets, chests, just to increase my luck at getting Frost Blitz. I finally got it though. But anyway, so onto the chest, we have Protector, damaging elite gives you a barrier. And then for our gloves, we have Shared Misery. When you hit a crowd control enemy, there's a 50% chance for that crowd control effect to spread to another unaffected enemy. So that's Frost Nova, that's vulnerable, all this kind of stuff. So just this synergizes well with our boots, Exploiters. You have a 20% increased crowd control duration. While enemies are unstoppable, you deal 30% increased damage to them. Obviously we want max rolls, but so basically your Frost Nova lasts 20% longer. Anything like that, you're immobilized from your meteor, which we'll get into that in a minute. So another thing that synergizes well with Starlight is our aspect on our legs. We have Crowded Sage. You heal for 39 life per second for each close enemy, up to 236 life. I think this is a sacred imprint. Once I get an ancestral imprint, this will go up even higher. So every time I lose health, and I have close enemies nearby, this goes up by 39, and then my health goes up by 39, and then my mana also goes up as well. So that's what synergizes well with that. And then for our weapon, we have Piercing Cold, Ice Shards Pierce 4 times, dealing 20% less damage per hit. And then for our offhand, you deal 26% more damage to immobilized, stunned, or frozen. This got nerfed, but still a good aspect. You could put Edge Master since we stay at a very high resource on this instead of this one. I've not tested it. I actually have it in my bags or my bank. I just put it in there. But for our necklace, we have Elementalist, Core, Mastery Skill cast at or above 100 mana, gain 45% increased critical strike chance. So we basically stay above 60%, no, 70% crit strike chance with this aspect. So that's very nice. You can also replace Piercing Cold or Control with Edge Masters for your weapon. Just make sure it's a high roll Edge Master so to gain the most benefit from it. But either or one of these can be replaced. I would recommend going with Control because you want the ice shards to pierce. But Edge Masters may be a DPS increase. You can always experiment with that. Now for our Wrathful Hearts, you gain 64% increase crit strike damage, but your non-critical strikes do 38% less damage. So we have you become immune for 3.1 seconds after you lose more than 20% of your life in a single hit. This just stops us from getting one shot, and then once it puts us down for that low, we can use a cooldown, and if we're already in the middle of something, we can just shoot our health up with Flame Shield and get our mana back as well. And then of course we always have Barber. Critical strikes and all subsequent damage within 4 seconds is absorbed by your target, then absorbed damage erupts onto surrounding enemies. Stored damage is increased by 14% per second. So this is just the bread and butter for every build. If you're not running Barber, I recommend giving it a shot, but other than that, we'll get into the talents. Alright guys, we're gonna get into the talents now. So if you're familiar with any Frozen Sorcerer build, this is pretty much the generic one. As you see, we're not using a basic skill, so we're just gonna skip over that part, just spend 2 points to get down here. We got 5 out of 5 in Ice Shards, and obviously our gloves increase it. And we're also going to go Destructive Ice Shards, hitting an enemy with 5 Ice Shards in a single cast makes them vulnerable, so we'll keep vulnerable up as much as we can. And then down here we get all of these, 1 in Flame Shield and 1 in Ice Armor. If you have your necklace with +3 defensive ranks, you'll have this much better than I do, but I do not have that. I got 5 of 5 of Frost Nova, so spend all 5 points in Frost Nova. Get Mystical Frost Nova, vulnerable. As you see, we don't take Glass Cannon because we already take a boatload of damage if we push the high Nightmare Dungeon tiers. Then we have 1 in Elemental Attunement. Critical strikes have a 5% chance to reset a cooldown, and I have noticed this with my Flame Shield. It saves me a few times, but anyway, we have Shimmering Flame Shield, and then we have Shimmering Teleport, gain 30% damage reduction for 3 seconds, and then we don't go down and get any Shimmering or Mystical Ice Armor. We just keep regular Ice Armor. While Ice Armor is active, your mana regen is increased to 25%. We really don't even need that, but alright, down here we have 3 of 3 in Precision Magic. Lucky hit chances increased by 15%. Synergizes very well with the talent we'll get to in a minute. I'm sure you can think of it. Got 3 of 3 in Protection. Using a cooldown grants 30% of your max life as a barrier. Always be using a cooldown. And then Mana Shield, after you spend 100 mana, you gain 21% damage reduction for 5 seconds. And the reason we want Meteors for Immobilize right here. Meteors impact immobilizes enemies for 2 seconds. I'll show you why in just a second. We have 3 of 3 in Snap Freeze. Frost skills have a 9% chance to instantly freeze. And then 1 of 3 in Icy Veil. Barriers have increased duration. And the reason we want Meteor at all is because Devouring Blaze, which again, you want this on your necklace. 3 ranks, 2 ranks is great, 3 ranks is even better. You deal 21% increased critical strike damage against burning enemies if they are immobilized. This bonus is increased to 30%. So elites, packs of elites, you just want to throw down your Frost Nova, Meteor, and then spam Ice Shards. That's it. So you want to get them immobilized, all that stuff. So that is just the best synergy right there. And throwing meteors out is so fun, so if you haven't tried this yet, you definitely should. And then to our ultimate abilities, so if you do not want to take meteor, you don't like meteor, you don't want to run it, you can also take an ultimate ability. Deep Freeze is a good one, and if you don't have raiment like me, you can also run Inferno to pull them in. It's totally up to you. I just keep Meteor because it's very fun to use in my opinion. I just love seeing it rain down. I might swap it to Inferno. But anyway, we have 3 of 3 in Permafrost, deal 15% increased damage to elites with Frost. 3 of 3 in Icy Touch, you deal 12% increased cold damage to vulnerable enemies. And then Hoarfrost, you deal 15% increased damage to chilled enemies and 30% increased damage to frozen. So that's where our big shatters come into play with our big Barber crits. And then our Lucky Hit, this is probably the most important talent for this. Lucky Hit, cold damage against vulnerable enemies have a 20% chance to generate 15 mana. So this is what we keep our mana up with, so make sure you max that out. And then for our key passive, we get Avalanche. And you can also run the Avalanche aspect that gives you 1 extra free cast to even stay even with more mana as well. Alright, so since you see I'm not as high as level as I can be, I'm only level 74. Our first glyph is Elementalist, and then just going up the left side here, and then our first board is Elemental Summoner, and then our second glyph is Flame Feeder. I actually have all these maxed out to level 15, except for Destruction, which is level 12, so I just spam Nightmare Dungeons. But anyway, you just want to go up the board here, we can zoom in a little bit. You get Reservoir, you get plus 16% mana. So on our gear, if you remember, we stack maximum mana, so this is why we get this board. Our next board is Frigid Fate, dealing cold damage to vulnerable enemies, increase your lucky hit chance by 1% for 5 seconds up to 15%. So we're always stacking lucky hit to increase our mana gains, and our glyph socket is Unleash. 17.1 vulnerable damage, and then the cold resistance. After spending 50 mana, you deal 6.7 increased damage and gain 6.7 increased mana regeneration for 3 seconds. And then Oppressive, 10% vulnerable damage. And then going up, we get the board Burning Instinct, and our glyph for this is Destruction, 19% critical strike damage. This is not the one I'm still leveling up. But anyway, you'll rotate it to get it like this, and then we'll get Smoldering Embers to plus 10 intellect. And then, like I said, Destruction, critical strike increases all damage the enemy takes by 2% up to 12. So we will obviously get that here in a little bit. Once we get to level 15, we can get these two as well, and then it'll put us there. But that's all I have for the Paragon board. A quick note, guys, if you play Sorcerer and have always wanted a viable fire build because you're a fire mage at heart, when I get everything situated and the new patch drops with all the buffs, I will be going fire myself because I love Fireball, I love Barber, and I love the synergies we will see with that new buff. Personally, I think Sorcerer's in a great spot right now, but I just don't like how we have to use all defensive cooldowns to stay afloat. Like, why did they base that around that? The whole class of Sorcerer is around all the defensives. But hopefully the new buffs to Paragon board, we can run more damaging spells. Like I know on my rogue I have 0 defensives other than maybe Shadow Step, but that's not even a defensive really. But as I was saying, so if you're a fire mage at heart and you love Fireball, Meteor, Inferno, Hydras, all that kind of good stuff, be sure to subscribe, as I'll have a video covering the new buffs, the Paragon board, and the new build that will go along with all the fire buffs. Make sure you don't miss that as well. But anyway, guys, that about covers it all. I love the infinite mana build, it's so satisfying to me. At level 74 on my rogue, I was doing tiered 42s, and after recording this, I was pushing 51s on the Sorcerer. Subscribe for more PoE 2, fire builds, and as I am a Sorc main now, so if you like Sorc, just subscribe, you won't regret it. We'll see you all in the next one.